asked a very important unstart question, which is about national security, about creating synergy between armed forces. What is your take on government's response?
No, I think the government for the last few years has understood that the security challenges facing our country have considerably changed. Terrorism and internal security threats like Naxalism and Maoist terrorism are the principal threats on one hand, and the other is the growing need to project our influence into the Indian Ocean area, where China is, as you know, aggressively trying to establish its presence. And the need for this is clearly a more inter-networked, interworking of the three services, which have for decades worked in isolation. Their procurement, their planning, their training has always been in silos. And the Prime Minister has made it very clear that the future of the armed forces will revolve around interoperability. And I think that is kind of what the answer that the government gave.
You've also asked about the CDS post.
Yes, I think this is, in my opinion, having a senior level military advisor to the government is something that has been, in a sense, I think opposed by generations of bureaucrats, sensing that their influence over national security policy making will wane. But immediately after the Kargil war, the Kargil Commission also recommended that there be an apex person called the CDS, which is Chief of Defence Staff, who will provide a single point advice and input into the political leadership about the role, the future, the operational capabilities of the armed forces. And I think that the fact that the government is moving ahead with that is a good sign, because it is, in my opinion, 4 decades in coming.
So I was going through the list of questions, and there's another important one, which is about controlling child pornography. Now, you're also part of this informal group that has been formed on the behest of Chairman Rajya Sabha, Mr. M. Venkaiah Naidu. Tell us, how can we combat this menace?
Look, from 2014, for the last 5 years, I have been, in a sense, single-handedly trying to draw the attention of the Parliament and the government on this so-called open secret that people don't seem to want to acknowledge, that our children are very, very vulnerable to predators that are visibly present in our society. And it requires more and more legislative action, more and more policing, more and more prosecution. And I am particularly pleased with the Vice President's move to create this informal group and give us 30 to 40 days to give a report. Because the problem today is not that children and the parents are not reporting the crime. That was the problem 5 years ago. Now more and more children and more the parents reporting the crime. But the policing and prosecution and the court process is so traumatic today that the acquittal rates are almost as high as 99%. So we can't have a situation where these criminals are roaming free because the court process tires out the victims, number one. Number two, I think there is a need for increasing this menace of child pornography, which is, in a sense, creating this market for abusing children, be addressed squarely. And I think one of the things that this group will do is also to squarely lay the responsibility of the internet intermediaries and social media companies, that if they carry child pornography, they will be criminally liable. I think unless India takes a hard view towards a determined view towards protecting our children will be vulnerable. And I'm glad that now Parliament is moving forward to create an atmosphere and an environment where children of India can be safe.
Thank you so much for giving us those inputs. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.